For the last couple of years, I've been indulging in writing fiction and embracing the creativity in me that I've been neglecting for a majority of my life. I'm not going to get into the journey that got me to this point because I've got plenty other videos on my channel talking about all that. What I will be talking about today is my particular process in writing my latest, nearly completed novella, Gal, the Ghost Princess. I've been on and off writing a handful of different stories these last couple years, trying out things, experimenting, and getting further with some stories than others. After a long, multiple-month hiatus from barely doing any writing, I felt compelled to write something in the sort of Disney princess adjacent genre. I felt compelled to write something in the sort of Disney princess adjacent genre. That was a hell of a tongue twister to get out. Please like this video. Mainly inspired by shows I had recently discovered, such as the Tangled series, Sophia the First, and Elena of Avalor. All of those are amazing, by the way. I can't recommend them enough. Watching those made me want to write a similar story for myself, as is often the case when I enjoy a piece of good media. And what came out of it was something far more fleshed out than I initially anticipated it to be. I'm going to start off with a very basic premise of it, and then we'll get into a more advanced one later on. When the connection between the living world and the spirit world is destroyed, and facing a sudden death, Princess Gal must come to terms with harsh truths whilst facing evil in her journey to restore the connection and see her family again. I had that basic premise in mind for a little bit before I'd actually started writing. I've been trying my best to make something out of it, and what I have to show for it is over 35,000 words worth of story with about 20 chapters and 140-something pages on my Google Doc. As far as I can tell from 2 seconds of research, that is within the appropriate word count to classify as a novella or short novel. Now, the story itself hasn't yet come to a conclusion. I actually only consider this as the first story arc that sort of kicks off Gal's journey moving forward. The majority of these last 30 days has pretty much just been focused on writing a rough first draft, researching, not writing at all on some days, and receiving critiques from critique partners. At the time of writing this script, I'm working on the second and final draft before I publicly post this web novel for free. That's right, as soon as this video is uploaded, there's going to be 5 chapters available to read for free on my website. It'll also be available on Wattpad, Royal Road, and maybe a couple other places for your reading convenience. All of those will be linked in the link tree in the description and pinned comment. Before I share some tips and techniques I've learned that helped me write this story in basically less than a month, I want to do some marketing and share a slightly more in-depth plot synopsis that gives you a better idea of the story. It was Princess Gal's favorite time of year, Star Ceremony Day, a festival dedicated to the night the royal family used the power of the spirit crowns to open the northern lights that appeared every October. The lights become a gateway to the Star Nation, another world where only spirits can go. On this night, the spirits visit their loved ones in the city of Numachoka. But when dangerous sorcerers and criminals break out of the city's offshore prison, the ceremony is thrown into chaos, and lives are lost. Fighting to save her little sister, Gal is struck by a powerful sorcerer's attack. Queen Morgan rushes to her daughters, but Gal doesn't survive. Morgan's guard is down as she mourns her loss, allowing a dark entity to steal the spirit crown from her head. When the crown vanishes, the northern lights shut, sending all of the visiting spirits and Gal to the Star Nation. Finding herself in a new world, Gal discovers that the other crown had come with her, and she can't seem to take it off her head. Meanwhile, the royal family must deal with the loss of Gal and losing the one method they had to be able to see her again. Morgan vows to find the spirit crowns and get things back to the way they were, no matter what it takes, no matter who she has to hurt. Gal meets new friends in the Star Nation, and together, they hope to restore the connection to the living world by using the power of an ancient stone found only in the Spirit Wastes. A perilous journey where the party risks their second deaths as they face savage, dark spirits. But what scares Gal more than anything else is the possibility of failing. Failing to restore the connection, disappointing the people of Numachoka, and that she might never see her family again. One thing I want to get out of the way is that I've never been able to commit myself to time-sensitive goals for creative processes. All that's ever done for me is stress me out and diminish the quality of the thing I'm trying to make. What I do instead is I just follow my instincts and trust that I'll write the things that I need to write in that moment. My writing process isn't always linear. Sometimes I start a story at a moment in the middle or the end, not knowing exactly how it begins, and then I work around what I'd made and try to fill in the gaps. I really just start with wherever my initial inspiration drops me off at, and then I go from there. Sometimes when I sit down to write, nothing really comes out of it, but I've had to train myself to realize that that's okay. One unproductive day doesn't mean I'm never going to write again. If anything, those slower days are good for me because by not forcing myself to do it, I'm less likely to experience burnout. By the way, I didn't always have these skills that I'm going to be talking about in this video because I'm an idiot, and I've always been an idiot. I'm only just recently figuring out this stuff that's actually pretty obvious in hindsight, but my last point is the biggest thing that makes all my other writing techniques work so well for me. It's the fact that I don't stress myself out too much about goals and consistency. Ironically, the more I try to be consistent, the less I can reliably put out. If I don't overthink it, I'm actually able to get into a flow state much easier and pump out a ton of writing in a day, sometimes around 9 pages, which for me is my typical chapter length. Sometimes I can even pump out multiple chapters in a day if I'm feeling real frisky. If I really want to write but nothing's coming out, or if I can't focus, my biggest ways to get myself in the mood, which don't always work, but they are definitely better than nothing. The first one is I like to listen to music with my eyes shut. Another one is meditating, and of course reading other stories. If I'm playing a game, watching a movie, or YouTube, it's far less likely I'm going to feel compelled to write because, for whatever reason, visually stimulating myself makes my imagination less active. Not always, I can get pretty imaginative watching cool stuff, but it doesn't come as easily to me as if I wasn't visually being stimulated. As for reading stories, the ones that inspire me the most aren't actually the good ones, believe it or not. Those do give me ideas, and they do motivate me in their own way, but what gets me writing more than anything else is reading a mediocre, bad, or a highly flawed story within a genre that I enjoy. When I'm reading something that has a lot of glaring issues, it awakens something within me that makes me think, I can do that better. Because I see the potential in the crap that I'm reading, and I'm just sitting there wishing it was better. I can't even really explain the feeling I get when reading something bad, but it just triggers something within me that really makes me want to write. It makes me feel creatively hungry, I guess. Another thing I do is I go to critiquecircle.com and engage in the community there. If you don't know, Critique Circle allows you to post chapters from your original works for, you guessed it, being critiqued. But before you can do that, you first have to earn credits by critiquing other people's works. It might sound daunting and like a waste of time, but trust me when I tell you that it's far from that. In this community, I've discovered some real gems of storytelling that I hope take off and find an audience one day, because there's really some great stuff on there. You benefit not just from receiving constructive feedback on your stories, but also from doing the same for others. Analyzing and critiquing stuff exercises a critical thinking part of your brain that, to be honest, I don't know if it has a scientific name or not, but there's something productive and imaginative going on up there when you do it. What also helps with my writing process is putting myself in very particular situations and places, which can differ depending on my mood and my health. I have a tablet with a keyboard attachment that makes writing super comfortable and efficient, given that I spend a lot of time in bed or out on my hammock in the backyard, due to my disability and very low energy levels. I also have a noise machine that helps me focus by putting something in my ear when music is a bit too distracting for me. By the way, shout out to Valiant Hearts, Galleons, Adola, and Make Them Suffer. For some reason for the past year, when I listen to these specific bands, I can lock the fuck in when I'm writing. Don't ask me why or how these heavy, high-octane bands work better than soothing music like jazz or something, but it just works, and I'm not gonna question it. It's especially baffling because literally all of those bands use lyrics, which you think would be distracting for me when I'm writing, but most of the time it isn't. It's weird. And then when it comes to meditating, I'll be honest, I don't do it nearly as much as I did last year, but when I was doing it a lot, I would come out of it with a very free and empty feeling, and that was a great mindset to be writing in. I don't really need to meditate as much as I used to because my mental health has come a long way, and I just feel much more comfortable in my own skin, but getting back into doing more meditating probably wouldn't hurt. Sometimes, I just get this urge that I need to write. I can't choose when that feeling comes up. It just happens on its own. Again, sometimes I get a lot done, sometimes I don't, but when I get that feeling, I've learned that it's best to act on it as soon as I can, otherwise I'm not really going to be able to enjoy doing anything else, because I'm going to have that voice in the back of my head telling me that I need to be creative. And when I try to ignore that voice, it gets kind of miserable, not gonna lie. I get very restless, and I just can't enjoy anything else that I try to do. And a lot of the time, I can't even choose what I'm going to write. I've learned that I just need to follow my instincts because my best and most enjoyable stuff to make comes from just going with my flow. I can influence it a bit depending on what books, shows, or movies I'm into at the time, but sometimes I feel compelled to write a certain story regardless of whatever I'm consuming. Unfortunately, and this is how I've always been, I can only ever do the same thing for so long before I get burnt out, which is why I'm so surprised I've gotten this much work done on Gal the Ghost Princess in such a short time. I do expect to burn out eventually on this story, and I expect it'll probably start happening soon, but I'm just surprised it hasn't happened already. It seems like the more I do this whole writing thing, the longer I can focus on new projects. As I said before, I have started other projects in these last couple years, and I've been on and off with most of them, but I haven't finished any so far. Gal is the one I've been able to work on the longest without getting burnt out or switching to writing a different story. Maybe in the future I'll make another video like this talking about new things I've learned between now and then. Hey, who knows, maybe that'll be another good opportunity for me to market some new Gal the Ghost Princess chapters. Like I said, it really all just comes down to trusting my flow state and not trying to force it too much. But at the same time, sometimes I do need to kind of drag myself out of that YouTube rabbit hole, that, social media scrolling addiction, and be like, okay, I need to write, because I have that voice in the back of my head that I mentioned before that's saying, like, stop doing this. But sometimes it's good to just turn my brain off, and because if I'm creative all the time, I feel like I'm gonna explode. Again, it's a matter of just knowing the time and place. If you're interested in checking out and following my new free web series, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be posting audiobook readings alongside each chapter release. There should actually be one live right now on the channel. But even if you don't listen to those audiobooks, you'll know when each chapter is out because I'll be posting about it. I'm going to try for weekly releases of at least 1 or 2 chapters, but I am disabled and my health is very inconsistent, so no promises on that. And again, check out the link in the description for all the places you can read the story, and follow my socials where I'll also be posting about chapter releases. If you want to support my work, I have a Patreon and tip jar link in the description, but more than anything, word of mouth is the biggest thing you can do. If you enjoyed the story and the characters, sharing it around with others, talking about it, making memes about it, whatever the goddamn kids do these days. You can do all that or give me feedback on Blue Sky using hashtag #GalTheGhostPrincess, or join my Discord server, linked below. And I definitely welcome constructive criticism, because my whole mindset for this being a free web series, I think of it as kind of like an early access indie game, except free, where it's basically up to the audience to be able to help me to shape possible future versions of the story, whether that be through a publication or, God willing, an animated adaptation. The other reasoning behind the whole open-ended thing is I'm trying to build up a following for all of my creative works, whether that be my videos, my live streams, my writing, whatever I'm putting out there. So even just checking out any of my stuff helps a lot. But if you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching regardless of whether or not you check out the story, and I'll see you in another one hopefully. Take care.